Okay, wait a minute. I think I got distracted by the wrong thing. A few days ago, I made a video about a fly that woke up inside a computer. And most people focus on the fly, which makes sense. You know, a fly living inside a machine is strange enough on its own. But the more I sat down with it, the more I started to think the fly was the least interesting part. Because the fly wasn't copied. Nobody scanned a body. They scanned the brain. They scanned every connection, every pathway, every signal. And what they ended up holding wasn't a brain at all. It was the pattern of one. The information. And somehow that was enough. The fly still moved. It still reacted. It still behaved like a fly. Which is the part that messes with me. Because we all quietly assume the physical thing is what matters. The body, the brain, the atoms, the stuff you can touch. That's what feels real. But what if we've got it all backwards? What if the information is the real thing? And the physical object is just where it happens to be stored? Because once you start looking, it's everywhere. Your DNA is information. Your memories are information. Money is information. A book is just paper until you add information. A hard drive is just metal until you add information. Take the information away, and the object barely means anything at all. So, if a handful of instructions can recreate the behavior of a living thing, what does that make us? Just sit with that for a second. Because the easy answer is that we're different. We're real. The fly's a copy. But the experiment doesn't actually let you say that cleanly. Because the fly was a copy too. And it still did everything a fly does. So whatever line you want to draw between you and it, you have to draw it somewhere other than behavior. And that's harder than it sounds. Here, let me show you something for a second. Let me show you a thing that actually flipped it for me. Imagine I hand you two books. One contains every discovery humanity has ever made, and the other is completely blank. The same paper, same weight, same size. Physically, they're almost identical. But nobody would call them equally valuable. The value was never the paper. It was the information. And once you see that, you start seeing it in places it shouldn't be. DNA is basically a code your body reads to build you. Your eyes, your skin, your organs, your brain, all assembled from instructions. A video game looks like a real world. Mountains, cities, rivers, characters. But underneath, it's information pretending to be a place. The player sees a world. The machine only ever sees the code. Now, here's where it generally gets strange. If a fly was just a pattern of information, then that pattern got moved out of a living brain into a machine. Two different materials, two completely different materials. Cells in one, silicon in the other, and the pattern didn't seem to care. It worked in both. So think about what that quietly implies. The information didn't need the original body. It didn't need biology. It didn't need anything specific to live inside. It just needed somewhere it could hold the pattern and run it. And if that's true, then the material was never the point. You know, carbon, silicone, whatever comes next, they're just places for a pattern to sit, interchangeable. Okay, I need to stop right now because you have no idea how many dots I'm trying to connect in my head right now, just saying this out loud. You know, I can feel where it wants to go to. It wants to go somewhere conspiratorial, you know, somewhere completely unhinged. Who's to say he's really unhinged though? You know, but I'm deliberately not letting it. Because the second you start to talk about information existing independently of the thing storing it, your brain starts reaching for huge answers, you know, maybe too quickly. So let me slow down. You know, think of a song. You know, the same song can play from a vinyl record, a CD, a phone, a laptop, different objects, same song. And you would never say the song was made of plastic or metal or glass. The song is something else. The object is just carrying it. So then what is the song actually made of? That's the question that stuck with me. Because a few scientists have started asking something similar about reality itself. Not whether reality is fake, you know, not whether we're definitely living in a simulation. Just this, you know, what if the physical world isn't the deepest layer? What if it's only the layer we experience? You know, think about clicking a folder in your computer. You're not touching the file. You're touching the icon. You know, a little picture standing in for something far more complicated happening underneath. You know, something you never actually see. So what if reality works like that? You know, what if matter is the icon and information is the thing underneath? Now, I know how that sounds, but honestly, so did the fly. A few years ago, if you told me there was an insect walking around inside a computer, I would have laughed. But now it's just true. And that's the uncomfortable pattern. Because every time technology takes a leap forward, it turns something we were certain about into a question. You know, solid ground turns out to be mostly empty space. A thought turns out to be chemistry. One by one, the things that felt fundamental get demoted to something running on top of something else. You know, matter feels like the floor of reality, the thing everything else is built on. You know, the thing we've been standing on this whole time. But people have been wrong about the floor before, again and again and again and again. So maybe matter isn't the bottom layer. Maybe it's just another layer. You know, maybe information sits underneath it. And if that's true, then whatever we're standing on right now probably isn't the bottom. And honestly, I think that's where the rabbit hole really begins.